Hello everyone and welcome to my video and channel. Today I wanted to go over with you my thoughts on an updated tier list in the Stellar Crown format. My last video was for Baltimore Regionals, and we went over all the decks that my prediction for Baltimore. Though a few regionals have passed since then. We've had the Joinville and the Dortmund regionals. And we've looked at some of their standings and finishes and just kind of wanted to kind of update the tier list and sort of show where I think the meta is at the time. So, yeah, I went ahead. I threw in a couple extra rogue picks here to rate. The list only had a handful of decks, but I went ahead and added a few extra ones. And if there is anything missing, or if you want any decks that wasn't listed here, let me know in the comments below, and I'll respond with how I think where I would put it. With that, let's go ahead and get right into it. First deck we have up is Raging Bolt Ogerpon. Raging Bolt Ogerpon has one of the wildest like pickups and drop-offs I've ever seen. I think the deck is very linear. I think it's a great deck for a newer player or maybe a more casual player. You know, they're gonna net deck like a limitless list and probably just roll with it. It's not a bad deck. It can definitely achieve some wins, and I think it's in a really strong position. I am gonna put it. I kind of want to put it in S tier, but I'm gonna stick it around the top of A tier for now. Just so we don't go too high right off the bat. But I think Raging Bolt is actually a really good choice. I believe that it is also it's so powerful. It's just so powerful. But it does get countered. A good player knows how to play against it. And I think that's where it holds it back just a little bit. I still think it's going to be a very popular deck. I still think it's going to have a high meta share at Louisville. And yeah. So moving on, we have Dragapult Pidgeot. Now this one's a little. I I didn't think Dragapult was great. I still didn't think it was great, but it's definitely, I think, won me over. I don't know if it's an S tier or not. I still want to put it in A tier. I actually might put it. I'm gonna put it just behind Raging Bolt, but I think Dragapult's actually really good. Especially with a lot of people running Dusknoir now. The Dragapult engine, which ironically also runs Dusknoir, can have a pretty good time at picking off those Dusknoirs rather than them getting picked off on your side. So I think Dragapult's in a really strong position. I definitely it remains to be seen how it will do at Louisville, but it did win a regional, so it's definitely got its place in the meta. Dragapult is looking way better than it was in the last format. Now that we have the Crystal, we have Crispin, we have Briar. There's just so many good plays now with Dragapult. So definitely a strong A tier pick. Definitely one that you want to know how to play against if you are playing a different deck. Then next up we have Gouging Fire. This one I added because someone asked about it in my last video, so I felt the need to add it this time. However, I don't think it's that good of a deck. I'm gonna put it in D tier. I'm gonna put it in D tier. I just don't think it's that great of a deck right now. I think Gouging Fire is an okay addition into Zard if you really want an answer to the stall matchup. But really, other than that, as a standalone deck, I just don't think it has enough to get there currently in the current meta. All right, we have Gardevoir. Gardevoir was obviously a strong pick at Baltimore. Ended up winning, so really good showing there. But that was also a format ago, so it remains to be seen. Was that a fluke, or is Gardevoir back in the meta? And honestly, I think it's an okay matchup. Now that Regidrago has fallen off a bit, I kind of want to put it back in A tier. I'm actually just going to put it right in the middle of these two. I think Gardevoir is in a pretty good spot. I am, Guardy's biggest hater online, but I can't deny the results and kind of how the meta shifts. It still may not be in a great spot, but with Regidrago falling off a little bit, I think that it's in a pretty good spot. So we'll leave it at A tier. It remains to be seen if people are going to go the turbo route or they're going to go the more traditional Guardy route. But yeah, we will see what happens at Louisville. Next, we have Charizard Pidgeot. The deck that I always feel like is near S tier, and I feel like it can be. I feel like we could put Charizard here in S tier. I really think Charizard. I think Charizard's always a really good deck, and I think that a lot of people, Charizard always just there, so people, they want to pick up the new toys, they want to pick up the new stuff, so they put Charizard to the wayside, and then Charizard comes out of nowhere and does stuff. So it remains to be seen if Charizard is going to be good in this meta. I still think Charizard is actually a very, very strong pick, though I do think it is not in the place that it was necessarily. So I'm kind of on the fence here whether I want to put this in S or A. I've got a lot in A already, so I kind of want to leave Charizard in S. I think Charizard is actually going to be a very solid pick, and I definitely think it's one that should be on people's radar. I think it's still going to have a pretty solid meta share, maybe a slight drop off from where it was at Dortmund, but I do think Zard is going to be good on the list. Yeah, I think Zard is going to be a very solid pick. I do think Zard just does Zard things, and it can do it well. You can build it in many different ways. So, whether you're building like just straight Charizard Pidgeot, whether you're going for like a Charizard control build, I think you can't really go wrong with Charizard. If you play it right and you avoid stall, you're probably going to have a good time. Next, we have Lugia. Now, Lugia, unfortunately, gave me a pretty bad performance in Baltimore, but I can't say the same for a lot of other people. A lot of other people have been popping off with Lugia recently. I definitely think it's a really good shot. Lugia kind of goes in and out of meta as people tech for it. And I think less and less are teching for it now. So you don't have to worry about Temple of Sinnoh or E-Hammers as much as you did before. So I definitely think Lugia is a solid choice. I kind of want to put it... I want to put it right about where it is with Guardy and right around mid A tier. I think Lugia, it just doesn't really gain anything from the new set. So, some are running the Wellspring, so if you hit the Turtle matchup, you do have extra bench space. That's kind of nice. But really, it just doesn't gain or lose anything. But Lugia is just a solid choice. It's got good prize trades. It can do pretty good in Dragapult matchup. It can do alright in the Terapagos matchup. It's got quite a lot of answers in the meta, and I feel like it just doesn't really have any crazy bad matchups, other than Iron Thorns. Yeah, so, all right, yeah, Lugia, mid-A, very solid choice. Definitely can't go wrong. Next, we have Clof. Clof actually had, I believe, a third-place finish at... I can't remember if it was Joinsville or Dortmund. It was, I believe, Joinsville. I'm probably wrong on that, but I believe it had a third place finish, I believe. So Clof, a lot of people put it in D. I'll put it in C because Clof is just one of those jank decks that like you're not prepared for, and if you hit it, sometimes it just overtakes you. So I think with the right player, Clof can be okay, but I think you are going to be going in a tough... You're going into a tough field, and just know that a lot of your matchups are not going to be the best. If you play Rogue, you're going to get Rogue matchups. It's as simple as that. So next, we have Gholdengo. Now, Gholdengo, we have one strong Gholdengo soldier out there who is doing really well with Gholdengo. It had a good showing at one of the recent regionals. And, yeah, I mean, honestly, 260 can be an awkward number to hit on a stage 1. It can get going fast. And sometimes, as goofy as the little cheese stick is, it can be good. So I think we finally go ahead and add our first B tier pick to the list. I think Gholdengo is sitting nice at B tier. I think... you know, it's got some tough matchups, but I think it also is it's sitting in a pretty good spot. So if you're a Gholdengo believer, and the Gholdengo believers are true believers, and when that's the thing, a lot of people aren't just picking up Gholdengo, you know. So if you're picking up Gholdengo, you probably play it a lot, or you're probably you know, you're a believer. So if you're a believer, I'd say go for it. I'd say go for it. So next we have Snorlax Stall. Definitely, besides Lugia, another deck I've been playing quite a bit at challenges and stuff. How do I feel going into a regional Snorlax though? I feel like Snorlax has fallen off a little bit, just a little bit. I kind of am gonna put in B. I'm gonna put it at the top of B tier. Well, if this will let me. Okay. Yeah, okay, maybe not. Nope. Okay, there we go. Yeah, we're gonna put Snorlax in the top of B tier. I wanted to put it in A, but I think it has some rough matches. Terapagos can be really tough, actually. They just, with Knockdown, they just pretty much always get whatever out they need. But I still think, you know, you farm Charizard, you farm Bolt. Lugia is a tough matchup, of course. You can beat Gardevoir. You can beat Dragapult. They can also be tough matchups. Gholdengo might be a little more winnable. Miraidon can be kind of wonky. Turbo Moon is just a terrible matchup. Iron Thorns can pretty much be winnable if you can snipe one of their clones. But yeah, Snorlax still I think is in a really good position, but I think it has fallen off a little bit. It's definitely not the menace that it was even one format ago. The Stellar Crown really changes some things up, and yeah, I think Snorlax Stall is still a solid choice. You still checkmate a few decks, but a few decks will now have a lot of answers to you. So just be aware of that going into your games. Dialga Metang. Oh, God. A deck that I was so big on for the longest time. Yeah, it's in D. Just don't play it. D for Dialga. Don't play this deck. It's a fun deck. I've tried to make it work. I feel like every set it just gets a little bit worse, to the point where, yes, you might have a game where you pop off as Dialga and you can make crazy comebacks with Star Chronos, but there's not much more else to say. It's just in a pretty bad format. You could argue it's slightly better now that Regidrago has fallen off a bit, but I still don't think it's in a good spot to run. You know, maybe take it to a challenge if you're feeling silly, but I wouldn't take it to a regional or expect a lot out of it. However, this deck I would expect quite a lot out of. Terapagos Pidgeot. Now, there's two Terapagos listed here. There's the Terapagos Dusknior deck and Terapagos Pidgeot. From what I've seen, they're run similar. So, at least I've seen when I played against Terapagos Pidgeot, it had the Dusknior line in it. So I'm guessing the difference would just be this not running the Pidgeot version versus this running the Pidgeot line. In all honesty, I think the Pidgeot line's really good. So if we're just saying the Terapagos Pidgeot Dusknior line, I don't know. I'm going to say it's probably the top of A tier right now, because like we haven't seen the crazy finishes with it yet. It still remains to be seen, but it's definitely a very popular deck. I think it's going to have a big meta share going into Louisville. And yeah, I think Terapagos is definitely going to be a deck to watch out for, or to know your lines into, because you're probably going to see at least one variant of it while you're at Louisville. Probably more than that even. But so far, I think it's in a very solid spot. I think it has a lot of answers, and it is pretty nice that you can like set up a bunch of one prizers and only put down your two prizes when you're ready. So that's pretty nice. It's just very versatile, and there's a lot of combos with the knockdown. So I think it's in a solid A, could even be S. It remains to be seen, but the potential is definitely there. Next we have Miraidon. Kind of going back towards the turbo decks a little bit. We were seeing when we did. So Miraidon, I kind of want to put it in B. I feel like it's fallen off a bit. since the last meta shift. I mean, it's still a popular deck. You know, you have good matchup in the Lugia, but you don't have the best Zard matchup. A lot of other matchups can be kind of wonky. I'm not a huge Miraidon player, so I'm probably not the best person to give my take on this, but I do think it's just kind of in B tier. You know, it can be good, but it's a little high rolly. You got to hit your generators. You know, things just have to kind of be in your favor to win with Miraidon. Otherwise, it's probably just close to like 50-50 on a lot of matchups, and that's kind of not what you want necessarily going in. So, definitely a solid choice. If you've been running Miraidon, it's definitely not a bad idea to continue running Miraidon. But, you know, don't be surprised if things just don't go your way with Miraidon, because that does seem to happen from time to time. Next we have Turbo Roaring Moon. I really enjoy Turbo Moon. Like right after the Worlds format, I was enjoying it quite a bit. But I'm not gonna lie. I mean, it does what it does well. I'm gonna put it behind Miraidon. I wanted to put it in C tier. Like this is borderline a C tier pick, just because like, you know, the Frenzy and Gouging just opens up to a lot of one prize knockouts, especially with stuff like Fan Rotom. Some people are running like Heat Tackle Charmander again. There's just a lot of answers to Turbo Moon now. You pretty much beat Stall, but that's really the only matchup you're kind of guaranteed. And considering Stall is usually like between a 3 to 5% meta share, I don't think it's definitely a great call to take to a regional. Though, I mean, if you do get going, sometimes there's just nothing you can do in time. Like it's turbo as turbo can get, but man, if you don't win early and it drags on, you might have a problem. So I think we're gonna leave it in the bottom of B tier, borderline C tier, but I don't think it's at levels of Clof yet, but it might get there. So next we have Pidgeot control. As one of my friends calls it, birth control. But no, Pidgeot control is a deck that I definitely don't think I have the brain power to do for 9 rounds of a regional, but I do think it's a very solid choice. I think Pidgeot control, I mean, if you're playing Pidgeot control, I'd say you're probably by definition a pretty good player. I don't think someone's rolling up to their first regionals with Pidgeot control. I definitely think people are, you know, if you're playing Pidgeot control, you know the lines, you know the matchups, and you're probably going to do pretty well. I just don't think a deck like this is going to win a regional, but I don't think you should have problem day 2ing with it, especially because you do have a lot of one of answers, and being able to quick search for that is really strong. So I definitely think Pidgeot control is good. Whether it's better than Snorlax, I guess, is sort of. I guess it's sort of like. I don't know. I want to put it on. I'm gonna put it right with Snorlax. I want to say one is necessarily better than the other in the meta, but I am just gonna put them together in the top of B tier. I think that's probably the fairest way to put Pidgeot control. And then some people are running like a hybrid, like Snorlax Pidgeot combo, which is fine. I would kind of put all those 3 decks right in the same tier. Like, they're all going to kind of do what you want them to do. And if you're playing the deck, you probably know how to play around the meta a little bit as well. I would say Snorlax is probably better to play than Pidgeot in terms of there's less misplays to make. There's less actions that you have to potentially misplay on. So in terms of making more optimal plays, I think Snorlax might be a better call. But if you are a higher level player and you know the matchups, Pidgeot control will give you so much more freedom and give you way more control over the matchup. So Pidgeot control, solid choice if you've practiced it. If you know the matchups, I'd say very solid choice to go into a regional. Though I'd say probably like a 2% meta share, if that. So I don't expect a lot of Pidgeot, but I expect the Pidgeots to show up to do well. Next we have Iron Thorns. Now this deck has kind of, you know, it started as a meme. It won the World Championship, went back down to sort of a one-off gimmick, and then it topped a bunch more regionals. So we have Iron Thorns, I believe it had a top 8 showing in Dortmund and Joinville. I believe it had that. There might actually been 2 in the one regional, but a few Iron Thorns showings over the past weekend. So definitely, I think it's still a solid choice. I actually ran it at a challenge and got 4th over last weekend as well. Very fun deck to play. Kind of shut your brain off for the most part. There were some, I still made some misplays even when I ran it. So there are misplays to make. But I definitely think it's a solid choice. You pretty much instantly win against Lugia. You shut off a lot of decks like Charizard. Even Raging Bolt can be kind of wonky because shutting off the Ogerpon, if you can get set up fast enough, you can still kind of two-shot and take some prizes. But I think Iron Thorns, it's in a solid spot. I'm going to put it, though, in B tier. I'll put it, like, right in the middle of B tier. I don't think it's a bad choice. It's just, it's got worse matchups than it used to have. So, relying on, like, the heavy Charizard lists or, decks like Miraidon or just relying on decks to just shut down decks doesn't really work as well anymore when your big decks are going to be Terapagos, Dragapult, which Dragapult's I kind of want to move Dragapult up, actually. I'm going to actually put Dragapult here. I think Dragapult's a tad bit better than Raging Bolt. Yeah, I kind of like where the A tier is looking here. So onto our next deck, we have Terapagos Dusknior. Now, this is what I believe I hit mostly on the ladder. I'm playing on the TCG Live. I think that the Pidgeot version is probably better in terms of quick search, but in terms of just getting set up and just more or less setting up a checkmate board state, I think Terapagos Dusknior might be a tad bit better. I'm going to kind of like I did with Control and Stall, I'm kind of putting them around the same level. Because I'm not exactly sure how too far these different other than the lack of Pidgeot on one versus the other. I do think it's a really solid choice, though. Terapagos we've seen is just so strong. A lot of players are hyping it up. It remains to be seen, what response to Terapagos we're going to have. I'm sure people are cooking up some counter decks for Terapagos, and it'll be interesting to see, in Louisville, what people come up with. So, yeah. Pretty straightforward. Terapagos Dusknior is just a solid, big basic swinger into the Dusknior engine. You can take some crazy, like 4 or 5 prize turns with it. It just is actually insane. So, if you're into that play style, Terapagos might just be for you. And I think you shouldn't have too problem running at a regional. And it remains to be seen how well it do, but I think currently it is very hyped up to be a very good deck. This one, Hydrapple. It don't matter whether you're running Hydrapple Turbo or Hydrapple Control. Hydrapple is going in D tier. Don't play it at a regional. Take it to a challenge. Have some fun. Don't take it to a regional. It just, 40 HP basics are just going to be sniped by half the stuff in the top tier here. So it's definitely not a great call. The deck is fun. It's a fun concept. It reminds me of Turbo Dark from back in the day, but it's definitely something that I definitely don't think is a good call. I definitely think you would have a bad time if you ran it, though it remains to be seen. Once it gets set up, it can hit some crazy numbers, and the healing effect of Hydrapple accelerating energy and healing can actually be pretty good, especially against like TM Devos or something like that. So that's pretty powerful, but I don't think it's where it needs to be yet. So just don't run it. Palkia Knockdown. Palkia Knockdown we've seen is a pretty powerful deck, no doubt. I think the Terapagos lines are a little bit better, just because you have to set up the Palkia. But I am going to put Palkia... I'm going to put it in like high... I'm going to put it in like low A tier. We're going to put it in low A tier. I think it is very solid still. I do think it has slightly worse matchups like into stall and stuff, but that's not too big of a deal. Um, it's still really solid. The knockdown line gets you what you need. Palkia has its VSTAR ability for some versatility. You can get a lot of like cool attacks off with it. I don't have a problem with it. It's just not really my play style. I've never been a huge Palkia fan. But it's definitely, I think, a solid deck. It's definitely one you should watch out for. You know, the Palkia does still tend to run the Terapagos line, so you know, you're still not escaping the Terapagos matchup, just albeit slightly varied than the others. Um, but yeah, I think it's a solid choice. I'll even go ahead and skip Reggie for a second and just put Palkia Dusknoir. Palkia Dusknoir was a thing before the Noctowl engine. I don't know too much of the difference here. I'm going to put this one, I think, slightly lower because I'm assuming this one is not running the Noctowl line. Let's just assume that that's not running the Noctowl line, or that it's running the Noctowl plus Dusknoir line. If so, I'd actually put it a little higher. But let's just assume that it doesn't run the Noctowl line, or it's running like less of a Noctowl line. I don't know. I think Palkia Dusknoir, it's one of those things. It's like same with the Terapagos, but it's slightly worse. So I guess I'll just go ahead and put it at like the top of B tier. I think it's good, but I think that I think some decks are just better. I think the Terapagos engine is just better on its own than with the Palkia line. But you know, if you're a Palkia player, it might just be your preferred playstyle. But yeah, I think, you know, we'll put them around at the end of A, the top of B. We'll put them both there respectively, because that's about where I feel like the Palkia decks are sitting in the current meta anyway. And last, but certainly not least, we have Regidrago. Regidrago had quite the falling off, at over the past couple weekends. It definitely was a strong Shrouded Fable deck, but not so strong in the Stellar Crown format. I still think Regidrago is a very popular deck, though, but maybe Dragapult's just a little bit better now. So I'm actually going to put Regidrago. I'm going to put it here. I'm going to put it slightly better than Guardy, but slightly worse than Lugia. I think all these decks just kind of beat it. I mean, Regidrago does have answers to some of these decks and stuff, but, you know, at the end of the day, Regidrago has fallen off a bit, which makes things just a little more powerful. I kind of low-key actually want to put this in the S tier. I think this actually has potential for S tier, so I am going to change that, put Terapagos Dusknoir. I'll put the Terapagos Pidgeot line here, just slightly underneath. But yeah, I think this is a solid choice. A little heavy in the A and B departments, but I think that just shows how varied the meta currently is. And I think that with all the decks in S, A, and B, I think you can comfortably climb with and do well. If you're one-tricking a deck or you're passionate about a deck, I think any of these you can do okay with. C and D, I would probably avoid. I'm sure there's more decks that I could add to this, but you know, I've been yapping for like almost 30 minutes now, so I think we're gonna go ahead and wrap it up. Definitely, guys, leave a like, comment, and subscribe. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know if you enjoyed. Let me know if there's any decks you want to see rated that I didn't get to. And hopefully we will have more deck profiles coming up soon. Work has been really hard, and I am also getting ready for Louisville next weekend. So hopefully, if you guys see me there, definitely say hello. It'll be lovely to meet you all. And yeah, with that, I'm going to go ahead and sign off. So have a good one. Stay safe. Love y'all. Peace out.